Today we're going to be talking about Dagon, which was written by H.P. Lovecraft in the summer of 1917. So it's one of his earlier works in the Cthulhu mythos, for those of you who are familiar with that body. Our narrator is addicted to morphine, and he's penniless and out of drugs, and has resolved to throw himself out of his window when he's finished telling us his tale. So the man was away at war, and he was a navyman, and his ship gets attacked, and they get taken by Germans, and they're on the German boat, taken as prisoners of war, but his captors are lax, and so he manages to escape on a lifeboat with some provisions. And he's sort of lost at sea. He's not very good at navigating, so he doesn't really know where he is. He can kind of sort of tell which direction he's going based on the sun rising and setting, but that's about it. He doesn't see any land, he doesn't see any ships, and he's just kind of floating there for 5 days. At the end of the 5th day, he goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, he's no longer in the boat. The boat is away from him a bit. He's on land, and it's a weird, wet, slimy, black mass of some type of plant matter that he doesn't recognize, and he doesn't know where he is. And this landmass goes on as far as he can see. He's so far from land, he can't even hear the ocean anymore. And because of the black slime and the fact that the plant matter beneath his feet that's kind of gooey looks very much like the plant matter at the bottom of the ocean, he's determined that this landmass has just sort of risen up out of the water overnight and came up underneath he and his boat. So he decides he's going to try to figure out where he is and if there's any food, because he's been at sea for a week, roughly. So he packs up the last of his provisions and he starts walking. And he just keeps walking until finally he sees the land is starting to rise up in front of him into a hill. At the top of the hill, there looks to be a drop-off, so he climbs up the hill and he looks over into this valley, and in the bottom of the valley is a river and a monolith, a big white stone monolith. So he climbs back down the other side of the hill and he walks up to the monolith. Carved into this stone, this giant white stone, is a series of hieroglyphs, and he recognizes that it's some form of writing, but it's not one that he's ever seen before. It's all aquatic themed, you know. The shapes are seafaring, they're fish and octopi and urchins and whales, and he can tell that it's some kind of writing, but it's not something he recognizes. And then in addition to the writing, there are these bas reliefs, which are men that are not quite men. So the narrator refuses to describe these beings in great detail, as he says, because of course in Lovecraft's world, the scariest thing is the thing that you don't know. So instead we get this description. They were damnably human in a general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. So that's how he describes them. There's some kind of fish amphibious creature. If you're familiar with Shadow over Innsmouth, you might recognize them from there. But this was significant earlier. This was written in 1917, and Shadow over Innsmouth was written in 1931. So this is one of the earlier depictions of these Deep One creatures. He goes on to say that this scale is all wrong. There's a depiction of one of them killing a whale, but the whale is only a little bigger than the creature itself, and he thinks that that's a matter of scaling. We as the readers are able to discern that the creatures are just huge. So the man goes on to say that he thinks that the monolith depicts creatures or sea gods that have been lost to antiquity that archaeologists haven't discovered yet. And just as he's come to the conclusion that he's made this discovery and he's going to be famous, another creature, a living one, comes up out of the river nearby and starts lumbering towards the monolith. And the man is absolutely terrified. The creature falls to his knees, it throws its arms around the monolith, and it just starts blubbering as though it is this lost thing that it's in love with. And the man is absolutely freaked out and turns around and runs back to his boat. We don't really have an account of how he got back to his boat or how he got it in the water, on account of the fact that he went entirely mad when he saw this creature rise up out of the river. We do know that he got picked up by an American shipping vessel and was taken to a hospital in San Francisco. Of course, he tells the men on the ship what happened, and they all think he's mad from being in the sea for so long. He even seeks out a professor who studies ancient religions and asks him specifically about the Philistine god Dagon. And he just kind of blows him off, and he's out of options, and he turns to opiates in order to calm his nerves. Unfortunately, being known as a madman in the early 1910s is not great for job prospects, so the man is destitute, he has no money, he has run out of drugs, and he believes that these creatures that he saw, like the one coming out of the sea, are after him. He thinks they're coming to get him, and so at the end of the story, he throws himself out the window. This is one of Lovecraft's milder stories. I like it because it introduces the concepts of the Deep Ones, of Dagon, of the Cthulhu mythos in general. This is kind of in its early stages before he really had it fully developed. And you can see that in the simplicity of what he describes. I like it because it is the story itself and the creatures and the mystery and the fear of the unknown without the undercurrent of racism that seems to find its way into Lovecraft's works. There's no mention of any of that in this one, so it's quite a nice thing to read if you're used to reading Lovecraft, and this one is blissfully absent of that sort of nonsense that tends to pepper his work, especially some of his later work. So yeah, if you're into the whole Cthulhu thing and you want to know more about Lovecraft's world and the elder gods, Dagon's a great place to start. Obviously you know what happens, but reading it in his own words with his sort of flowery descriptive speech might be something that you like. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and of course if you like the way that I present information, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below. You can find all of my social media contacts in the description, and of course if you want to keep up with me and the progress I'm making on my current novel, you can do that at effywritesbooks.com. Thank you so much for watching, have an excellent day, and I'll see you next time.